Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever found yourself thinking about someone, constantly replaying their image, words, and the way they make you feel, even though there has been no communication for a while? It is something we all experience from time to time, the presence of a person in our mind despite their absence in our lives. If someone is always in your mind without any communication, it might mean more than just idle thinking. It could be a reflection of deep emotional connections, unspoken feelings, or unresolved thoughts. Our thoughts, after all, are often the gateways to understanding what truly matters in our hearts. At first glance, you might think it's just a matter of habit or fleeting thoughts, but in reality, the mind often holds on to people and memories for reasons that can be both beautiful and complex. There's a lot we can learn from this continuous presence in our thoughts. When someone is always in your mind without any communication, it's a sign that there's more beneath the surface. It's not just about them, it's about what they represent in your life, the impact they've had, and the emotions they stir within you. It's an invitation to reflect on the unspoken bond and to understand what your thoughts are truly telling you. When someone stays on your mind, even without direct communication, it is often a sign of a deep emotional connection that transcends words. We as humans are inherently social creatures, and we often form connections that are not only built on physical presence or verbal exchanges, but on something far more profound. An emotional bond. This bond can manifest in ways that don't require constant interaction, but rather reside in the unspoken moments and shared experiences that create an unbreakable link between two people. In many cases, this emotional connection doesn't necessarily need verbal affirmation or constant communication to remain strong. Think about the times when you felt deeply understood by someone, when a look, a smile, or even a shared silence spoke volumes. These moments can carve deep emotional impressions that stay with you no matter how much time passes without direct contact. The way someone makes you feel, the comfort or sense of peace they bring, can linger in your thoughts without the need for words. This type of bond is often felt in the most genuine, unspoken forms, like when you're reminded of them during certain moments of your day, or when a specific scent, song, or place brings back memories of time spent together. Even in their absence, their energy can resonate with you, and you may find yourself constantly thinking about them, feeling their presence in your life, even if you haven't heard from them in weeks or months. It's important to recognize that emotional connection doesn't only grow through face-to-face communication or constant texting. Sometimes the bond between two people is so deep that it lives in the undercurrent of their shared experiences. A glance across a crowded room, a brief touch, or even a quiet understanding without a single word spoken can create an emotional tie that stays present in the mind. These connections don't dissolve easily. They have an ability to persist, sometimes even stronger than regular communication, because they aren't limited by time or space. The power of an emotional connection that surpasses words also lies in its ability to affect us when we least expect it. Have you ever found yourself daydreaming about someone, reminiscing about a conversation that seemed like much at the time, but now feels significant? Or perhaps you've been in a situation where just thinking about someone can make you feel their presence, like they are still with you, even if they are far away. These experiences happen because the emotional connection has rooted itself deep within you. Sometimes we realize that we don't need constant words of reassurance or physical closeness to feel emotionally connected to someone. The bond itself is more enduring than that. Our minds are incredibly powerful, and they don't easily forget those with whom we've shared meaningful connections. It's the kind of bond that exists in the heart, not just the mind. And often, when someone is consistently on your mind, it is a sign that your emotional attachment to them runs deep, and that connection, in its own quiet way, is speaking to you long after the communication has stopped. When someone occupies your mind consistently, especially without any communication, it may be a sign that there are unresolved feelings or lingering regrets that have yet to be addressed. Our minds have a way of holding on to emotions and experiences that we haven't fully processed or let go of. And these feelings often resurface when we least expect them. If a person is constantly in your thoughts, it could indicate that there are aspects of your relationship or interaction with them that remain unresolved. Sometimes these unresolved feelings take the form of emotions left unspoken. Perhaps there was something important you didn't say, a conversation that never took place, or a part of the relationship that was left unfinished. Even without verbal communication, these feelings can remain with you like a knot in the chest, reminding you of what was left unsaid. This internal pressure can make someone feel ever present in your mind, as your subconscious attempts to process and reconcile these emotions. Regret in particular is a powerful emotion that can create a persistent presence in our thoughts. It's often tied to missed opportunities, actions we wish we could take back, or decisions we made that we now question. If you feel regret about something that happened, or something you wish had happened, your mind can replay these scenarios repeatedly. It might be moments where you feel you didn't do enough, didn't say the right thing, or failed to make a decision that could have changed the outcome. The person you're thinking about may be tied to that regret, especially if you feel you owe them something, or if there's a lingering feeling of what could have been. Unresolved feelings can also stem from situations where closure was never achieved. Relationships, friendships, or even fleeting encounters sometimes leave a sense of unfinished business. If you feel that something was left hanging, your mind may keep returning to it, trying to resolve the loose ends. This might not always be obvious at first. Sometimes the mind holds on to the emotional remnants of a situation that hasn't been fully processed. This is why someone can continue to be on your mind even without direct communication. Your emotions and your subconscious are still grappling with what happened and seeking a way to make sense of it. Often this unresolved energy manifests itself in subtle ways. Perhaps you have dreams or daydreams about this person, where you revisit conversations you never had, or imagine outcomes that were never realized. You might find yourself in situations where their memory resurfaces unexpectedly, bringing up the same emotions, regret, guilt, sadness, or even confusion that you felt at the time of the interaction. Your mind is essentially attempting to tie up the emotional loose ends, and this can lead to a constant mental replay of the situation or the person involved. Moreover, these unresolved feelings can start to affect your present life. You might notice that thoughts of this person influence your decisions, your mood, or your approach to new relationships or experiences. It's as if the emotional residue of the past is still exerting its influence on how you see the world today. The fact that someone is consistently in your mind could be a sign that the past in some way has not fully released its hold on you. Your heart and mind may still be trying to heal from that emotional wound, and this unresolved feeling keeps your focus on the individual involved. In some cases, unresolved feelings may not even be tied to something negative. It might be unexpressed love or admiration that was never communicated. a feeling of gratitude that went unvoiced, or a longing for connection that was never fully realized. This can make the thoughts of that person feel bittersweet, an emotional cocktail of affection and melancholy, creating a persistent presence in your mind. Whether positive or negative, these unspoken emotions have a way of hanging in the air, unresolved and without closure. Your mind's tendency to fixate on someone with whom there has been no communication could be your inner self's way of signaling that the emotional energy has not been fully processed. There is an urge to release or resolve whatever internal conflict remains. Even without direct communication, this internal battle can keep that person in your thoughts, forcing them to occupy a larger part of your mental space than they perhaps deserve, simply because the emotional thread between you and them has not been completely untangled. One of the most profound reasons someone might remain on your mind even without communication is an unspoken need for closure. When a relationship, whether romantic, platonic, or otherwise, ends without a proper conclusion, there can be an emotional void that lingers. This void is often filled with questions, doubts, and feelings of incompleteness. Closure is a vital part of the human emotional experience. It allows us to process an event, understand it, and ultimately move forward. Without it, we may find ourselves trapped in a mental loop, replaying situations or conversations over and over in our heads, trying to make sense of what was left unresolved. Closure isn't always something that can be easily attained. Sometimes it requires confronting uncomfortable truths, facing the reality of why things ended the way they did, and coming to terms with the loss or change. If there was no communication that provided this understanding, it can leave us emotionally stranded, without the tools needed to fully move on. This is when someone might continue to occupy our thoughts. The mind often clings to unresolved situations because there's no finality, no sense of conclusion that can allow us to heal and let go. When you haven't received closure, your thoughts may be filled with questions like, why did they leave, or what went wrong? Perhaps you never fully understood the reasons behind a falling out, a breakup, or a separation, and this lack of clarity makes it hard to let go. Your mind keeps going back to those moments, trying to find an answer, a reason, or a sense of resolution. This cycle of questioning can keep that person's memory alive in your thoughts, making them seem ever present as you subconsciously seek answers that have yet to be provided. In some cases, closure doesn't come from the other person, it comes from within. Yet, the absence of communication leaves us in a state where our emotions remain unprocessed. The mind tends to hold on to situations where there is no clear ending, often filling the emotional gap with what-ifs, if-onlys, and regret. This inner struggle for closure means that the person will stay on your mind as your brain tries to reconcile the lack of closure with the emotional significance that the relationship had. The emotional work that should have been done to heal might never happen because the necessary conversation or realization was never allowed to take place. You might also realize that you seek closure in subtle ways that you don't fully recognize. For example, you might find yourself obsessively reflecting on past conversations or interactions, trying to pick apart the details to see if there was something you missed. Or you might fantasize about an ideal scenario where the two of you finally have the conversation that answers all of your questions, even though the chance for that conversation might never come. Your mind, in its quest for resolution, becomes fixated on the idea of closure because it understands deep down that something is incomplete. The unspoken need for closure can also manifest in ways that we might not expect. You may even feel that you need to see that person one more time, hear their side of the story, or receive some form of acknowledgement from them that puts an end to the emotional turmoil. Without closure, the mind can begin to build a narrative around the situation that feels like an open wound, constantly reopening with every memory or thought of the person involved. It's not that the person is actively trying to cause this unrest, but rather that their absence has left an emotional gap that hasn't been filled by understanding or resolution. In some cases, closure might never come, and this is a harsh reality that many of us face. The inability to get that final conversation, that understanding or that moment of clarity can be frustrating and painful. Still, the need for closure doesn't simply disappear. It stays with us. The more time that passes without this necessary emotional resolution, the more the mind will continue to fixate on it. This is when a person who no longer communicates with us can linger in our thoughts, not necessarily because of their actions, but because of our own unresolved emotional needs. Even if you consciously try to move on, the need for closure can pull you back. It's like a part of you is still waiting for that conversation to happen, still hoping for that final moment of clarity that can end the cycle. Without closure, your mind can't release the emotional attachment you have to that person, no matter how much time has passed. This creates an ongoing internal tension with the person remaining present in your thoughts, because deep down, you know there's a piece of the puzzle still missing, something that has not yet been said or understood. When someone occupies your thoughts constantly, especially without any form of communication, one of the most common reasons is intense attraction or affection. The human mind has an extraordinary ability to fixate on people who evoke deep emotional responses. And when this attraction is particularly strong, it can make them seem ever present in our thoughts. Attraction, whether romantic or platonic, is a powerful force that can leave an indelible mark on our psyche. In fact, the more we are drawn to someone, the more likely it is that we will think about them constantly, even if we are not interacting with them on a daily basis. Intense attraction often goes beyond simple physical desire. While physical attraction certainly plays a role, emotional and intellectual connections can create a profound pull that keeps someone in your thoughts. Perhaps this person makes you feel seen, heard, or understood in ways that others do not. They may trigger a sense of excitement, comfort, or curiosity that your mind seeks to hold on to. This feeling can become almost addictive. Your brain craves that emotional stimulation, and when the person is not around, it continues to long for the connection they bring. The absence of communication, in this case, only heightens the intensity of the attraction. The more you cannot reach out or interact with the person, the stronger your mind clings to the idea of them, fantasizing about potential interactions or imagining what could be. Emotional attraction is often built on shared experiences, unspoken understanding, and moments of connection that are deeply meaningful. If you have shared an intimate or transformative experience with someone, this bond can become etched in your memory. These moments can create a mental and emotional imprint that makes that person hard to forget, even in the absence of verbal communication. The emotions you experienced during those moments can stay with you, making you yearn for more of the same. Your thoughts may be filled with those shared instances, replaying them over and over in your mind, each time experiencing the same rush of emotions that you felt when you were with that person. This mental replay reinforces the intensity of your attraction And the absence of communication amplifies it further as you begin to idealize the person and the connection you shared. Affection too has a similar impact on our thoughts. The warmth of caring for someone can create a subtle but persistent presence in our minds. You may not need constant communication to feel connected to them emotionally. Just knowing that they exist and have played a significant role in your life can be enough to keep them in your thoughts. In some cases, affection can also be a form of attachment, which makes it even more challenging to let go. You might feel a sense of longing or nostalgia for the bond you shared, which is why the person keeps coming to mind, even though they are no longer in your life in the same capacity. Affection doesn't always require physical proximity or verbal exchanges. It is a deeper, more intrinsic connection that often persists even when the person is no longer actively part of your daily existence. When someone is intensely attractive or you feel a strong affection for them, your mind tends to focus on them almost automatically. Thoughts of the person can slip into your daydreams, disrupt your concentration, and keep you up at night. These thoughts are not always deliberate. They come naturally, as if your mind is drawn to them without effort. The thought of them becomes a comforting or exciting distraction from the routine of daily life. Sometimes the attraction is so strong that it feels like the person is a part of your identity, a source of joy and fulfillment that you're missing. Your mind continues to hold on to the idea of them because the idea itself provides a sense of emotional fulfillment, even in their absence. This intense attraction might also be complicated by a sense of uncertainty or unrequited feelings. When the attraction is not reciprocated or is left unaddressed, the lack of communication only increases the emotional tension. Your mind becomes fixated on trying to understand the other person's feelings, wondering if they feel the same way or if there is a possibility of a deeper connection. In these cases, the absence of communication doesn't diminish the intensity of your feelings. It amplifies them, creating a kind of mental longing. It's hard to escape. The lack of clarity surrounding the other person's feelings can create an emotional void where your mind continues to fill in the gaps with fantasies or hopes, feeding the attraction even further. Moreover, intense attraction or affection can create a sense of attachment to the idea of that person, which can be difficult to break free from. Your mind may not just be attached to the person themselves, but to the idealized version of them you've built in your thoughts. You might remember the good moments, overlook their flaws, and fantasize about what could be rather than what actually is. This idealization can keep the person in your thoughts long after communication has ceased, as your brain continues to hold on to the dream or the potential that was never realized. This cycle of intense attraction or affection can make it incredibly difficult to move on. The person who occupies your thoughts can become a source of both emotional pleasure and frustration, as you find yourself unable to stop thinking about them, yet unable to change the situation. This unresolved emotional energy only strengthens the bond, making it seem like the person is always with you in your mind, even when they are not physically present or actively involved in your life. When someone is constantly in your mind without communication, it may be a subtle indicator of emotional dependence or attachment. As humans, we form connections not only because of shared experiences, but also because we rely on others to meet certain emotional needs. These needs might include love, validation, comfort, or simply a sense of belonging. When someone fulfills these needs, it creates a sense of attachment, And even in their absence, they remain a part of our emotional landscape. Emotional dependence occurs when the person's presence in your life is central to your emotional well-being, making it difficult to move forward without them. The mind has an extraordinary ability to form attachments, often even when we are not fully conscious of it. When we are dependent on someone, our thoughts often revolve around them, and it becomes challenging to separate our identity or emotions from their influence. For instance, if you've relied on someone for emotional support, guidance, or reassurance in the past, your brain may become conditioned to seek them out, whether or not they are physically present. This dependency can create an emotional attachment that doesn't disappear simply because communication stops. The absence of interaction doesn't necessarily erase the need for their presence in your life. Instead, it can make you long for their support and connection even more. In many cases, emotional attachment can create a sense of anxiety or unease when that person is no longer actively involved in your life. You might feel a constant tugging at your heart or an inner longing for the emotional comfort they provided. The feeling of attachment is often so ingrained that it's hard to recognize when it becomes unhealthy or one-sided. When we depend on someone emotionally, we sometimes lose sight of the fact that their role in our lives might not be as central to them as it is to us. We may continue to think about them, wonder how they are doing, or even fantasize about them returning to our lives, all because we have become emotionally reliant on the comfort they once brought. This constant mental fixation becomes a sign that the attachment has grown stronger even in the absence of physical presence or communication. Emotional attachment can also cause us to idealize the person we are attached to, overlooking their flaws and placing them on a pedestal. Where someone becomes so central to our emotional world, we tend to build up a mental image of them that is often not entirely grounded in reality. This idealization makes it harder to let go, as we see the person not for who they truly are, but for the emotional role they play in our lives. This can lead to a cycle where we continue to think about them longing for the idealized version we've created in our minds, rather than accepting the complexities of who they are in reality. The stronger the attachment, the more difficult it becomes to separate your emotional needs from your thoughts about that person. In situations of emotional dependence, the idea of the person might come to symbolize something much deeper than just the individual themselves. They may represent safety, stability, love, or even the validation of your self-worth. When someone serves as a central figure in your emotional life, they essentially become a part of your identity. This can make it hard to move on or even think of other possibilities for connection. Without communication, the mind might continually reach out to that person as if subconsciously searching for the fulfillment of those needs that once seemed so easily met when they were around. The emotional attachment that forms can act as a kind of anchor in your life, making it hard to move forward because you keep returning to the idea of them and what they represented to you. Moreover, emotional dependence often comes with a feeling of emotional loss when that person is no longer involved in your life. This sense of loss is not just about missing the person themselves, but about missing the emotional fulfillment they provided. You might find yourself searching for that same comfort or emotional connection in other areas of your life, but because the attachment to this person is so deeply rooted, nothing seems to replace the feeling they once brought. This kind of emotional gap is a clear sign that your thoughts are continually occupied with the person. As your mind tries to fill that void that their absence has created. This dependence is often a subconscious process, and it is only through reflection and self-awareness that you begin to realize how much of your emotional well-being was tied to that person's presence in your life. In some cases, the attachment may not even be recognized until there is a prolonged period of separation or communication stops completely. The realization of how dependent you may have become on someone can come as a shock. At first, the person's absence might seem manageable, but over time you begin to notice how much you have relied on them, not just for companionship, but for emotional support, validation, and comfort. Your thoughts may become increasingly consumed with wondering where they are, why they haven't reached out, or when they might come back into your life. This constant mental replay of the person's presence and absence is a clear sign that the attachment has a powerful hold on your mind. Ultimately, emotional dependence or attachment creates a scenario where your thoughts are constantly pulled back to the person, because in some way they represent something crucial to your emotional equilibrium. The more you depend on them emotionally, the more difficult it is to stop thinking about them. Their absence doesn't just leave a gap, it creates an emotional void that your mind keeps trying to fill, leading to continuous thoughts about the person and a sense of yearning for the connection that once was.